Throughout this course, we have seen how those in power can dictate how their subjects are perceived from an outside perspective. Although ideally news should be unbiased and fact-based, some news channels in the modern era have been guilty of creating content to only reinforce their viewers' beliefs. In this video, we will be focusing on two powerhouse news channels with opposing political views: Fox News' The O'Reilly Factor and Comedy Central's The Daily Show. We will be delving into the controversy surrounding the Chinatown video and The Daily Show's response to this.
I can't believe you're denying this.
Don't be sneaky. Tell me exactly what she means.
It's something you will only hear on the show.
This is Fox News, the fair and balanced news channel that is most trusted. But who's forming these opinions? Let's take a look at the demographics of its viewers, specifically a segment titled The O'Reilly Factor. Those actually watching The O'Reilly Factor are, in short, old, Republican, and conservative. This is Bill O'Reilly. His segment on Fox News revolves around his no-spin zone, which claims that politicians can't spin their arguments. Water's World Chinatown Edition, a segment of The O'Reilly Factor typically intended to be comical, turns out to be just outright disrespectful. And this is why.
In the first presidential debate, China was mentioned 12 times. So we sent Waters down to New York's Chinatown to sample political opinion.
Jesse Waters' cultural ignorance serves to generalize the entirety of Chinese culture to the smaller Chinese population in Chinatown. He does this by asking if he had to bow, practicing Taekwondo, getting a foot massage, and the association with Harajuku girls, almost fetishizing them. The interviewees are depicted in a way that paints them to be less intellectual than the interviewer, mainly because a lot of them can't even speak English, and therefore don't even stand a chance to voice their opinion. In this example, Waters approaches a man who is most likely not a predominantly English speaker, expecting an answer, even making these remarks in the recap.
They just sit there and
they're
say nothing.
They want you to walk away because they don't have anything else to do.
This isn't the only instance they remark on their silence and undermine their intelligence and ability to comprehend politics, simply because they just don't speak the language. Listen to what they had to say about this elderly lady.
Trump has been beating up on China. How does that make you feel?
The old lady, I don't think she knew.
No, she didn't.
Let's now take a look at a few techniques Fox News uses to subvert their interviewees' responses that are undesirable. Their use of quick zoom when the guests fall silent is used as a comical technique by Fox News to draw attention to what is believed to be their guests' alleged ignorance. They project their own emotions onto their audience by using presumably familiar reference materials such as these. After this man,
Snap out of it.
and after this woman.
Speak! Why don't you speak?
And finally, Waters has the tendency to patronize his guests.
Before I was a gambler.
Jackpot.
Frenemies?
Frenemies. What's not made in China?
I can't think of it right now.
Me neither.
I'm explaining to you because you look nervous.
How do I say in Chinese, this is my world?
You gotta say it right. Either don't say it. Nigo.
Nico.
It's not Japanese, Chinese. You gotta do it properly.
Okay, teach me.
Otherwise, forget it.
Nigor hai
Go.
go
Get sai guy.
kesai gai.
That's it.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
Let's run that back. Here we see all three techniques used at once: the camera zoom, the mocking of the interviewee, and finally the reference material at the end. The camera zoom immediately gives the impression to the audience to not take the Chinese man seriously. The reference video at the end, for those who didn't catch it, and signifies that Jesse needs to be held back from fighting the man, and even worse, that because it's Chinatown, the man is not even worth Jesse's time. These film techniques discussed, although claimed to be simply a light piece,
It's gentle fun, so I
Yes.
know we're going to get letters. It's inevitable.
or just Waters being tongue-in-cheek,
It was all in good fun.
achieve what seems to be the segment's actual goal, which is silencing the interviewees, and even worse, portraying them in a negative way. In the same way Susan uses Friday's lack of tongue as an excuse not to teach him English, news channels use humor as a way to silence, in this case, Chinese Americans. I hope it is clear to you that this Water's World episode is, as the mayor of New York says, vile racist behavior and a failed attempt to gather the opinions of Chinese Americans. It therefore might come to you as a relief that there have been several negative responses to it. A documentary released this summer, Outfoxed, shows former Fox staffers accusing their old bosses of ordering them to slant the news in favor of conservatives.
There is no journalism at the Fox News Channel.
What are your thoughts on the Jesse Waters video on Fox News?
The chicken reporter who came down here and thought he was big because he talked to people who couldn't speak English.
Yeah, that douchebag piece of
The one who was sent here by the larger chicken who couldn't come to Chinatown because he was afraid to do it himself. You mean that one?
Yeah, that guy.
This is Ronnie Chang. Like Water's World, Ronnie Chang's segment in The Daily Show is first and foremost a light-hearted, comical show that uses humor to gain viewership, and in this case, respond to the Chinatown segment. We know that the O'Reilly factor is largely viewed by conservative Republicans, so it is important to note that the viewers of The Daily Show have vastly differing political views. You can see Fox News representing the right wing and The Daily Show representing the left wing. It is therefore no surprise that this show is not impressed with Jesse Waters and his work in Chinatown. In order to gain a fair view of how these two news shows compare, we need to analyze The Daily Show in a similar manner that we previously saw Waters and O'Reilly. The Daily Show, while keeping its comedic value, actually has some insightful points that address the issues we analyzed previously with Fox News.
This might come as a surprise, but Chinese Americans do actually have genuine thoughts on this year's election. That's why I went to Chinatown to speak to people in a language they understood. Human.
Ronnie Chang acts as the vessel for Chinese Americans that were silenced by Waters to voice their actual opinion. By speaking Mandarin in this interview, Chang allows his well-informed interviewee to effectively communicate his political views. He articulates a defense for the unfairly represented while also accurately criticizing Waters for the partisan representation.
They don't speak English. That's why they're silent. It's easy to make fun of someone when they can't respond. If you want to come at Chinese people, make fun of China's high pollution or the fact that they censor most of the internet.
Ronnie admits there are real aspects to criticize about China, such as pollution, and this shows that he is more open-minded to legitimate criticism. This adds credibility to his argument, as it shows this response is not just because it's an opponent news channel, but rather because the content of the segment was blatant racism. Though The Daily Show has a more progressive message, there are still some aspects of Ronnie Chang's critique that are less than effective.
This that happened to the idiocy, go yourself. Where the did this come from, you ignorant sack of This guy. Hey, asshole, jack off,
Okay, enough of that. See our point? Although it adds to the comical effect, the surplus of foul language used is unproductive in remedying the issues that the Chinatown segment brought forth. And to top it all off...
No, it's actually the year of go yourself.
Ronnie Chang's vulgar language is obvious, but just like Waters made a mockery of the responses he received, Chang makes a mockery of Waters, turning it into almost a personal attack. Let's go back to this example and check out what he says after.
That's why they're silent. It's easy to make fun of someone when they can't respond. Here, I'll show you. Hey, douchebag, why do you look like a guy who carries around a pack of roofies just in case? And why do you look like you have hookers on speed dial? Oh, and follow-up question, is it hard to fit Bill O'Reilly's entire scrotum in your mouth?
So just like Fox News, we can see that The Daily Show gets a few things wrong. Although we can easily see the flaws in the Water's World segment, we must not succumb to the same bias ourselves by just critiquing news channels that don't align with our views. When watching this Daily Show segment, we have to question whether this is really an appropriate response. The Daily Show is guilty of a lack of professionalism with their language, using unnecessary swearing and personal attacks on Waters and O'Reilly. It does not serve to help bridge the gap between the silencers and the silenced, and instead, by fighting fire with fire, divides these groups even further.